Welcome everyone. This is a budget informational session. You should have received a full and an abridged copy of the budget in your email, both from the listserv, it's posted on the website, and also from a separate email account from the treasurer. The process this year is the bylaws were amended, and now the budget is voted on the third Saturday of every April. That's April 24th this year. So the finance committee has prepared a budget. The board has approved a draft budget to present to the members, and this is a forum to get feedback on the budget, the narrative, anything that people have questions on before we lead up to that final vote to approve the budget. So I'm going to turn it over to David Lewis, the treasurer, and I'm going to mute everyone. We're going to do the same thing as previously. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand on the Zoom. If you're having trouble with that, you can also type in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible. I believe the plan is that we're going to group similar questions and create an FAQ type document. So if they're submitted in writing to the treasurer or to the board, or submitted here during the meeting, we should be able to address most of the questions that come up. David, all yours. Okay. Oh, actually, hold on. I'm going to mute everyone and unmute you.
Charlie, just let me know when it's good. Charlie, did you mute me? Charlie, did you mute me?
No, I just unmuted you. I'm sorry. I also
No
muted
problem.
myself.
Okay, thank you. Welcome everybody. My name is David Lewis. I'm the treasurer for the Waterford Association, the Beach Association at Pleasure Beach. As Charlie mentioned, last year the majority of the members voted to vote the fiscal year 2021 annual budget. The budget, as Charlie mentioned, was prepared. It was divided into three sections. One was what's the current proposed budget. I gave a historical section in terms of what has been spent over the last 5 to 6 years. In addition to that, there's a line-by-line item narrative to the budget that explains how each of the respective committees and or board members, how we came up with the expenses that were listed. And then in addition to that, on the full version of the budget, there's a list of either proposals or contracts that served as backup documentation to the budget. With respect to this year's budget, there will be a proposed increase to the assessment fee from $350 to $415. Some other changes that were reflected were in the original email that were sent to everybody. Those changes included an increase to the new member fee. As everybody knows, last year we reached our 200 member cap. We currently have a 14-person waiting list for the Beach Association, and the member fee, the new member fee had not increased, I think, until from 2008. So it was the board, we looked at it, and that was one of the proposals, was to increase that fee. We also eliminated the hold fee that we had been put in place, I think right after it went in shortly after the financial crisis of 2008. I think there was some issues that the association had, and I think it was instituted around 2009 or 2010. So with that, and we also have some proposed capital improvements. We have a unique situation here where there's going to be potentially some work with the state of Connecticut And so some of the expenses, I work with the state of Connecticut on their own parking lot and on the boat launch this upcoming summer. And based upon that, there's some expenses that we put in there that the maintenance and capital committee felt were important to institute now for future use by the association. So with that, I can answer any questions that anybody may have.
All right, just raise your hand. All right, we have Karen Murphy. Karen, I'm going to unmute you.
Hi.
You
good
should be
morning,
all
everybody.
set.
Okay. Can you hear me, Charlie?
Yeah, we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, I can start my video too. I guess I have a couple of questions. One is the initiation fee, the $2,500, and it was $1,500, and I'm just wondering why it's gone up and why it has to be paid in 1 year.
That was, so in terms of why it's gone up, the fee had not been increased since 2008. It was 1,500 back in 2008. So we're in 2021 right now. I think it's, and costs and expenses have increased. We're also, in the past, we've utilized that money to fund capital improvements. Essentially, since we've hit our new member cap, or our membership cap, the prospect of getting any future new member fees is very limited. We went from 184 members in 2019 to 200 members in 2020. It was the first year that I think that we had that large number of members in the history of our beach association in one annual year.
But that still doesn't mean that we have to raise the initiation fee. I mean, we had money in our budget last year, and it just doesn't seem like we actually need the money in order to raise it.
Well, we don't, well, one of the items that's in the capital improvement project is, well, we don't know for a fact that we don't need the money. One of the items that's in the capital improvement project is an assessment on the bridge. The firm that originally did the assessment on the bridge was the Caesar Bentley engineers. They did an assessment back in, I think, 2008 or 2009. We have a report, it was dated August of that summer. They did a load test on the bridge. They also recommended that every 2 years we get a reload test on the bridge. So this year, a load test has not been done, a formal load test has not been done on that bridge since, to my knowledge, since 2009, or that we have possession of. So we need to get that load assessment redone, and also an inspection of the bridge to make sure there's no maintenance issues that need to be addressed, since we own the bridge. In terms of
well, we could just shut it down. We could put a Jersey barrier in front of it and shut it down. I mean,
you cannot.
It's not falling in. Other people, what other people, can say it's not that you need to reassess. But I mean, we don't have, that's not something that has to happen. We have other access to the beach. We could all go down the path.
The state of Connecticut has the legal access over Dock Road to enter the beach association. We own the portion of Dock Road from the stop sign at the intersection of Valley and Dock Road, and we have granted to the state of Connecticut an easement over Dock Road, over the bridge, to access their property at the boat launch. According to our attorney, we have a legal responsibility to make sure that that roadway is free and clear of any obstruction. We cannot put a Jersey barrier in the event there's an issue with the bridge. The other thing that, that we don't know as an association is if there is a casualty on the bridge, what the total cost to replacement of that bridge will be. That's another portion. And I think it behooves the association, and so does the maintenance and capital committee, that we as an association find out what the cost will be if that bridge, if there's a catastrophic event with the bridge.
Yeah. There's
and we'll know this summer. We'll know by June, hopefully by June 1st.
Well, we have to approve the budget first. So I think that's a little bit rushed. So my only other thing to follow up was that you raised it to 2,500, and the new member has to pay it all in 1 year, where we have always historically, I don't know why you're changing a precedent that was set that a new member would be allowed to finance it over 3 years. I think that's unfair.
And I understand your point, and that's well taken. Again, this is an informational session. This budget is in draft. The purpose of holding informational meetings is to get feedback from the association, and that's the intent of the meeting this time for today and tomorrow. Also, this may not be the only informational session I have, depending upon the additional feedback that comes in. I may schedule some additional informational meetings. This is the first year. I think this process is an important process for all the members to go through, because in prior years, the board just came up with a budget, and that was the budget. The association members didn't have a say. In terms of the one payment, we will look at that and take that under advisement. And we will take that feedback.
Yeah,
I think it's also important to note that, you know, this is a draft budget. The board approved the dollars and cents to be presented to the membership. The board has not voted on officially raising the new member fee, officially getting rid of the payment plan. These are things that we've discussed. So we're going to be looking for the feedback of the membership before we change any policies. You know, there's nothing official yet, so everyone is welcome to opine on their thoughts. You know, like David said, we're just trying to identify the areas of the proposed budget that people have questions on and collect as much information, send it back out with hopefully reasonable answers, and continue the conversation that way. Karen, are you all set? Do you have anything else you want to add?
Well, if you I do have other things, but I'd like other people to talk first. I don't want to monopolize the conversation. So
Okay, well, we'll come back to you then. There are a couple questions in the chat, David. You know, this questioning whether the state would help pay for a new bridge, whether the state shares in maintenance costs. We don't really have a maintenance plan for the bridge. I guess this every 2-year study might be considered maintenance. And then there are some comments about how, you know, people, older members with disabilities need the bridge. So, you know, members need the bridge as well. So David, could you address some of those?
Yeah, so I can address all of those.
As far as the state goes?
Yeah, so in terms of the members needing the bridge, as I stated to Karen before, our attorney has emphatically stated that the right-of-way that the Waterford Association has granted to the state of Connecticut, that roadway has to stay open. It has to be free of obstruction. So we cannot block the bridge. We cannot do anything with regard to that. In terms of the state sharing in the replacement costs of the bridge, there is no formal agreement in terms of the state sharing in the replacement costs of the bridge and or the maintenance costs of the bridge. And I highly doubt, with the state's fiscal problems at the moment, that they would even volunteer to replace the bridge. I can assure you, though, that they will have an input into the design of a bridge in the event of a casualty, and that the association will be responsible for paying it. We had an issue a few years back where the railing fell off the bridge. We sent the state a bill for $250. Members of the association fixed the railing, and the state said they would pay the cost 50-50, or that's what they alluded to. We sent them the bill. They never paid us the $250 on that bill. So I personally, from historical perspective, do not expect the state to pay for any maintenance costs and or replacement costs of the bridge. But we do have to maintain it and the right of way to have it open. In the past, we have also had to send the Caesar Bentley report to the state for review.
David, there's also a question about whether or not there's money earmarked for the bridge. Can you address that?
Yes, there is. There's 2 funds that were earmarked for the bridge. There's $100,000 that's in Peoples. It's been invested into a 5-year annuity, and then there's a 3-year $30,000 annuity that's been invested with Liberty Bank. But again, when we do, assuming the budget is passed and we do hire Laredo to do an assessment on the bridge, it'll be the first year that we will definitively know what the cost expectations are to replace that bridge.
Okay.
Right now, the association has no knowledge on what it would cost. So I think it behooves the association because that bridge is old. I did talk to Art DeCesar from DeCesar Bentley, or DeCesar Engineers. He basically, there's some feedback. He's essentially said to me that the age of that bridge, it's time that there, and because it's located so close to the water, it's exponentially going to see some deterioration. So again, I'm not an engineer. We've hired an engineering company to do a reload assessment. We'll see where that information comes out. Will also identify any immediate maintenance repairs that they feel are needed from a structural standpoint.
Awesome, thank you, David. So there are a couple questions in the chat. Gary Slater said that for some families, paying $2,500 at once might be difficult. Like I said before, the board may or may not choose to eliminate the payment plan. So this is all really good input. Let's see, they're kind of coming fast now, so I lost my track. Some people said, why is the cap 200? Why can't it be 215, 15 times 1,500, $22,000, and that could solve the problem? The 200 cap is in our bylaws. That would be a bylaws change. I don't know the history of it, but that's kind of outside the scope of this meeting, but that's definitely something that we can discuss. And there is a hand up, so I'm gonna unmute Kathy Cavacino, and then I'll catch up in the chat and we'll get back to whatever I missed. Kathy, you're unmuted.
I'm on? Okay, sorry about that.
You're on.
Oh, sorry, I'm at a work site right now, so I'm kind of busy here. So I just wanted to chat in. Dave, thanks for doing all that budget work. It looks like you did a ton of work on this. I have a question on employment. It doesn't seem to be positions that were there last year or in the past 10 years have come back up. They've either been redescribed as new positions and combined. I'm curious, that's one of the reasons I have a question. That would be the beach director and head lifeguard. It would be very important in order to hire someone to do that. They would be waterfront safety, 21 years old, which is a very hard certification to get to somebody to be a beach director. So I would really think about retitling that, because you're going to have a liability if not. I'm not understanding why we're not having a beach manager as we have always had in the past. So that's one of my questions. But my question to myself and to the committee is that last year was probably one of our, and I could probably attest to that by asking, probably 90% of this audience if they enjoyed the whole social aspect of the beach. And this year, I do not find any social director, whatever the title is, for employment. That was $1,200 that Karen and I in the past had shared. My concern is that what I'm hearing is that the bylaws have now dictated the new way of running the entertainment or social. I find that to be somewhat a challenge. To me, the beach looks like it's turning into a PTO where you're expecting people to volunteer. Based on my experience, PTOs don't work after so long. People get tired of volunteering. The same group of people get tired of volunteering. I think in any position of volunteering, when you have that kind of budget and you're expecting an outcome of success, as Karen and I had last year, you would want someone in that position to direct people for that $1,200. I think it's a loss not to have someone in that position. Directing people doesn't mean that they necessarily do everything, but they do have a good responsibility. They have a faithful responsibility to the beach that they are employed, and they have a job to get done. If you go to your committees and do your volunteering, you're going to lose out. It's going to be pragmatic. People are going to get upset because people don't volunteer. So I think you need to rethink about putting those positions back in paid positions, and understand that that's how the beach was run in the past. I think it needs to continue forward. Those are my questions.
Okay. Thank you very much, Kathy, for your input and for your questions. In terms of the beach director, head lifeguard, unfortunately, John could not be on the call today. And he was in charge of formulating the payroll budget. So we will, I will have, the board will reach out to him and also get him, get some information in terms of your thoughts to retitle the beach director and or beach lifeguard, and also the beach manager position. In terms of the social chairs, we are predominantly a volunteer organization, and I will ask John to opine in terms of the pay. He was in charge of the payroll budget. But we do, in terms of the bylaw changes last year, we do have an entertainment committee. There are 3 co-chairs on that entertainment committee, and between the 3 of them, they will seek volunteers to assist with any of those, any of the needs that committee needs. And Jennifer Lord is, I think, on the call today. So I'd like to ask her to opine in terms of the structure of the 3 co-chairs and how they envision the entertainment committee to be for the fiscal year 2021 season.
All right. Hi, everybody. So yeah, I understand that this is kind of a new role, having the entertainment committee, and it's a volunteer. I think that's fine. It will be dependent on membership participation. We have a lot of really fun things planned for the beach this summer. And me, Nikki, and Leah are all committed to making it, you know, to facilitating a lot of different activities for all ages. It will be dependent upon members helping, for sure. You know, the more people are willing to pitch in and participate, the better it will be. But we're also committed to making it work and making it a fun season.
Can I reflect back on that?
Sure.
Jen, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I mean, you being and I'm just telling myself I'm the old person, and I know a lot of the people that I associate on the beach are the old people, and the majority of the beach has a lot of old people that have been volunteering for years and years. It's tough work to get volunteers, and Karen will attest to that, because I think we have that personality that we are driven to kind of go after people that we know that are going to help out. We do that. And I think the whole social thing, the entertainment is wonderful, but I think it's above and beyond what we put on last year. And I think some of that is, yeah, that should be a PTO type of thing, which you're kind of running children activities, blah, 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 every weekend, movie night. I get that. I think that's very nice for the beach and the kids to have and in the community to have. But I think that the stuff behind the scenes, you can't imagine the amount of the hours that Karen and I put in meeting with people, figuring out schedule, who's going to set up these things, who's going to be there to meet and greet. You're going to find the same people doing the same thing, volunteering, and they're going to be ticked off after a while saying, why hasn't everybody else help? People are tired of doing it. They would rather pay. I will tell you for a point fact, PTOs, it's a buyout. Parents don't want to volunteer. They're going to buy out the paper wrapping. They're going to buy out the popcorn. So I think this whole volunteer thing, great idea, supplement it, but you need to have somebody in charge, and a paid position is the only way it's going to hold responsibility.
Kathy, just for the people that are on the phone, can you just explain the acronym PTO? Because I don't think people are familiar with it.
All right, so if you are in a school community, which is a large community, like a school, okay, the PTO is a parent-teacher organization. You have parents involved, you have teachers involved, and you're an organization that works together. In this day and age, if you go to any elementary school where the PTO is pretty strong, and then it flutters down into the middle school and the high school, which is non-existent, parents are there to volunteer, to create a social, to create money driven for these socials, to support all organizations in the organization itself. And it's all volunteer. But over the past, and I'm going to say 30 years, parents can't get involved like this anymore because it's too much of their time. They have only valuable time with their family and they don't want to do it. So they buy it out. They're willing to pay $100 to the organization and let someone else take care of it. That's what I'm saying to you guys. I'm saying you need somebody in charge, and then they can delegate, because then then you have someone that's responsible that it's got to get done. None of this is, if it's a volunteer, I don't have to have food trucks. I don't have to, you know something, I'm up in West Hartford today. I can't get down there this weekend, you know?
Yeah,
then you
I
fall
guess
into years, you're going to find the same people.
I don't know
that's
if $100 stipend is going to make a difference of whether, I mean, you know, I still have.
No, I'm not saying give you 100. I'm saying to you, this is what I'm saying. I'm saying the budget, which was $1,200 last year for the social, should be put back into that budget. Have one person or two people or three people, whatever they want to share. It's not worth the money. It's worth the understanding that you are employed and you are responsible. A volunteer is not responsible. End
Well,
of story.
I mean,
You know-
I like to think our commitments, our committee's pretty committed to the beach. We all have kids that are there, and we want to make it special for all of them the same way that we had it when we were kids.
I understand that.
I also, I'm gonna just mute everyone and unmute, or I won't actually. So the board is all volunteer, and I can promise you that we all feel a level of responsibility. We wrote a committee guidelines document this year, and we chose committee chair people who we felt could be responsible. I definitely see the point of burnout and volunteers getting tired over the years, and I think that's a really valid point that people need to think about. But you know, I hope that all of our committee chairs, bylaws, entertainment, maintenance, membership, finance, you know, they're all volunteers and they all feel a level of responsibility over their own domain. But you know, that's just my only point. Christine Lajeunesse wants to make a comment, so I'm going to unmute her. Christine, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, Charlie, first, thanks for not butchering my name. A beautiful job with my last name. So I just wanted to first say to Karen and Kathy, I commend you guys. You know, we're newer members to the beach, but we did rent from the Tarbells for several years before we purchased our home on Palmer Road. And in all the years that we've been visiting and as members, the committee itself, you guys did a phenomenal job. We couldn't participate in a lot of stuff just because of COVID and the line of work that we're in, but the things we did do were very well organized and well attended. And I look forward to seeing what the new committee has to offer, but I do just want to say to the board that made the decision that I agree with Kathy, that I've sat on PTOs, I've run big committees with volunteers, and it does take a lot of work. And it is, you do get those same people and you do burn them out. And I do think that the amount of work that goes on behind the scenes is a lot. And many people, I don't know specifically, but I know some of the people on that committee, they have work, they have family and responsibility. And so it's good to recognize the fact that if you're compensating, and I understand that most of the committee members are, or board members, it's a volunteer position. But I do think that if you look at what came out of the paid position last year to the members, I can't imagine that anybody complained about it. So thinking whether or not people would reconsider that to be a paid position, I think would be a good idea. And I think given the fact that if you're considering raising fees, I know you're talking a lot about the bridge and everything else. I just can't see why some dollar amount can't be allocated to something that we saw so much success in last year. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Christine.
Christine, this is David Lewis. Thank you very much for your comment. In terms of, I just want everybody just to, in terms of this budget process, I mean, the items that are in this budget were items that came forth from members of the association that said, I think we need to look at this. I think we need to do this. So to the extent that you're asking, that everybody's asking to put in the social chairs, that's fine. And the board can revisit that, and we will have a conversation with John, who was responsible for the payroll budget. I said, and at the end of the day, it's the membership that controls the budget process. If you want social chairs, if you want security, we will put that in the budget for everybody to vote on. And it's basically a dollars and cents, you know, decision for everybody when they vote. So I have no problem putting in social chairs. It may marginally raise the assessment fee. Security is a different issue. We did get a comment on security. Security, if we had to hire it for the summer, would raise the fee from $415 to $490. So like I said, it's the members' budget, and I really appreciate all the feedback, because for me to do that 89-page budget, and for the finance committee people to do that 89-page budget, and for the maintenance committee to get the bids, and the legal committee and the bylaw committee to get the legal bids and all that stuff. We just didn't create this budget in a vacuum. There was a lot of work that was done in the fall and in January to get the budget to where it's at today. So if the members want the social chairs, and the board will discuss that, and they're going to discuss all the changes and all the comments that were made as part of this, and then roll out another version to the members.
Thanks, David. Jen Lord has her hand up, so I'm going to unmute her and put her back up.
Thanks. All right. I just, something that I wanted to make sure was put out there while we were talking about volunteer participation is that the entertainment committee is in the process of forming a quick survey that we will be sending out shortly, specifically in regards to volunteering from the membership. So we are looking to get an idea of who's willing to volunteer for, specific, once we have the budget passed and we know what events we'll be holding, we'd like to get input from the membership as far as who'd be willing to volunteer, more broadly. We're looking to get a database of people who we could reach out to as we're planning events. And then we're looking to see if members have any specific talents or activities that they might be willing to share with the beach. So I think it'd be nice to kind of formalize a database to gather this information, to see what might work, and maybe to possibly promote more participation in the future. We're definitely we're new to this and young, but we're also really invested because our kids are new and young, and I think the three of us are really committed to our kids having a connection to this beach the way that we do so strongly. So, we'll be reaching out shortly to see what your participation level will be. We hope that we get a good response back, but we would like to formalize that kind of knowledge base by sending out a survey to the membership, and we're hoping for good feedback, strong feedback.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, and the survey from the fall, one of the questions was about volunteerism, and the question was, do you think it is still an important aspect of the beach? Most people said yes, but when we asked, what do you think, how does the beach you run? All volunteers, all paid, or a combination? The majority of people thought it was a combination and thought that there should be, some paid positions. So you'll see in the budget this year that things like raking were added. That's an example of a paid position. Now the social chairs being removed is kind of going in the other direction. So it's definitely a good conversation. I think that in the interest of time, I would like to ask David to add these notes to his FAQ that can be distributed. I do want to get to a couple questions in the chat. Let's see. There's some about the member cap. I think we're going to put that in the FAQ. We can address that tomorrow as well. There was one question about the investment. So if we're looking at the possible of a near-term bridge project, what was the thought process in investing money set aside for the bridge into a product that have a 5-year commitment without the ability to take more than 10% out without penalty? David, I think you can address that.
Yes. So in terms of the investment, I researched, because we had been having a CD that was, I think since 2016, that had been rolling without reinvestment. It had been going into an automatic renewal at 10 basis points, which was earning nothing at People's. So when I was researching investments, safe investments, we looked at annuities from People's and from Liberty Bank. In terms of the bridge, we don't know now because we haven't had a report since 2009, so to speak. So we will know what our needs are in the next 3 to 5 years on that bridge. We will know what our immediate needs are for maintenance items that need to be done. We do have enough money still in our budget. I mean, in our Liberty Bank operating account to cover any immediate maintenance needs. But the planning of the bridge, that's not a quick thing. When you plan the eventual replacement of it, you're going to need an engineer to do that. We don't even know what the cost will be for that. I'm pretty confident that short of some catastrophic event, that we will have the funds available. And if there is a catastrophic event, say a cement truck drives over the bridge, well, that's an event or something that caused that action caused the collapse. We need the load zones properly posted, and that's why it's important that we get updated load zones on that bridge now, and we properly post them this summer.
Okay, I'm doing a bunch of different things. Christine, hold on one second. Also, I think that, I don't know if you made the point, I'm sure you did, but the 10% that we can take out every year is what we can remove as cash, but the total principal amount is liquid in the sense that we can use it as a down payment for a loan. Is that correct, David?
Yeah, we could use that. We could use that annuity as, for a cash collateral, a collateralized account for the repayment of a loan. So it's because it's cash available if the association members decided not to pay the penalty for the withdrawal.
Okay. There's one other comment about the bridge.
Well, one question. So Charlie, I think the high level of because it's on a declining scale for the penalty, I think the high penalty is 8%. So 8% of $100,000 is $8,000. If we have a catastrophic event on that bridge, and just say, for instance, the association members decided to take the entire amount of money, $8,000 that gets added to the eventual replacement cost of that bridge is probably going to be a drop in the bucket in terms of costs. So, I mean, we have to look at it, but again, at the end of the day, the association needs to know what the cost of that bridge replacement will be. The association needs to know, are there any immediate repairs needed for the bridge? And the association needs to know is, has the engineering for the load calculations, have those changed since 2009? Those are all immediate questions. We own the bridge. There's no getting around that. But the association needs to be educated.
I think that answers a question that in the chat, someone said, or Karen Murphy said, there is a load zone. I think, that's old. Part of that study was that it should be renewed every couple years. And as far as the penalty for the annuity, I think that if we were forced to pay the penalty in year 1 or 2, that would probably be, unfortunate. I look at it as, when will the interest accumulated be more than the possible penalty? And, I think that happens in year 3 or 4. As far as, there is a hand up, but as far as the bridge goes, David, there was one more question. Is it possible to negotiate the easement with the state? Or is that outside of the scope, and should we address that later?
And try, I don't understand so they have an easement right now that is from basically the top of Dock Road at the stop sign at the intersection of Valley Street down to their property. So in terms of negotiating an easement, in terms of having them assume maintenance and replacement costs, I don't know specifically negotiate an easement. Typically, if you give somebody an easement, it's an easement in perpetuity. So,
right.
And
we own the asset, and we've given them the right to go over it. So unfortunately, we need to maintain it.
Yeah, the attorney has emphatically said that it's our responsibility to make sure that that easement is free and clear of obstruction. Okay, she has an issue with, and she, just to let everybody know, the state put up signs, put up a handicap parking sign at the end of that easement. The attorney has an issue with the placement of that sign, and that's going to be one of the discussion points with the state, because technically they can't have a car parking there on the easement, even though, because it's first of all, it's our property, and we have a right to maintain that as an open, free and clear easement. So,
Okay. All right. So there's a hand up. I want to get to Annie Gorley. Annie, you are unmuted.
Thanks. So switching gears, I want to ask about the beach grooming and the beach raking and whether that involves heavy machinery.
I will have to talk to the proposed vendor on that, Annie, and get back to you. So you want to know if it uses heavy machinery?
Yeah, I mean, so my concern is
Okay,
if
so in terms of the raking, I don't know, but in terms of the beach grooming, they use a sand sifter to do that. The town of Waterford has one, and unfortunately, the town of Waterford, according to, I don't know if it's their charter or whatever, they cannot contract out to use the beach sand sifter. They, in the past, because we've allowed them access over our beach to take their lifeguard stands off the public beach because they cannot efficiently do it from the top of at the end of Leonard Court and the top of New Shore Road. Because we've allowed them to do that, they sand sift our beach twice a year for free.
Right.
Okay, so whatever that equipment is, I mean, it is a tractor that pulls a piece of equipment that literally, I think takes the top 2 or 3 inches of sand and sifts it through a sifter. And then, you know, what ends up coming out is clean sand, so to speak. The town of East Lyme does contract out their services. And they have agreed to do our beach for in addition to the 2 times. So we'll have our beach sand sifted at least.
Right, and you've explained all that in there, David, so I don't want to waste the time with the explanation you already provided. It was very clear, thank you. But my concern is, could we get a consultation from the DEEP about whether using heavy machinery is going to further erode our beach? We have a very fragile beach. It's a spit beach. And you can already see how shallow our sandbar has gotten due to erosion. And so I just don't want to see our beach eroded. I don't want to see the acceleration of erosion because we're driving heavy equipment over it on a weekly basis. You know, if you want to understand the implications of a spit beach, you can look at Kitty Beach, a beach that used to have a paved road on it and serviced cruise ships, as now just acres of sandbar at low tide. So I just want to understand, I have no objection to grooming the beach or raking the beach or having someone pay to do that, because it's become very cumbersome and a distraction for the lifeguards. But I do want to make sure that we're being ecologically conscious of the implication to our property.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I mean, we can reach out to CTDEP and find out. And I will also find out from the raking company the type of equipment that they're planning to use. I honestly think that they're probably just going to use regular rakes and manpower.
Okay, that's great.
To rake the beach, but
Yeah,
I don't know that for definitively.
I just want to make sure we're being conscious of our impact on the environment.
Okay.
Thank you, Annie. I do want to just make one comment. We didn't do it, but it was proposed and considered that we have an environmental sustainability and stewardship committee of people who wanted to focus on issues like this. So, you know, that's something the board can always create. If there are people who are interested, you know, please reach out. I definitely think that protecting the jewel of what we have is the beach. So it's important. And Annie's comments also relate to a question in the chat, which I'll just read into the meeting. It comes from Dan Tarble. He said $5K annually for beach raking from a professional company. What type of equipment? We're going to address that. But he said, what other short and long-term alternatives have been considered to avoid this annual expense? I'm not sure. I think, David, you can elaborate, but I think that the lifeguards, you know, might not be raking this year. So I don't know that beyond a professional services contract, if we've considered any other options. Have we, David?
Not to my knowledge, not at this time. I mean, this is a collaborative effort. I mean, to the extent that other members have ideas, feel free to give them to me. One of the things, Charlie, that you know of that I've been doing has been contacting all the area beach associations I think there's a lot of them. I've contacted probably 6 or 7 of them. I basically have asked them 30 questions, and each of them, I've been asking each association the same 30 questions to sort of see how they're handling stuff from either a staffing standpoint or even from an operational standpoint in terms of beach raking. What's their policy on trash bins and all that stuff. So hopefully by the beginning of the summer, I will have a more have a comprehensive sort of assessment of how the other associations in the area, from New London all the way to Old Lyme, how their members and their boards are addressing situations. I did find out that the East Lyme beaches, in addition to each the individual association, they do have a council of East Lyme beaches. So there's representatives from each one of those beach associations that meets collectively to discuss and talk about issues that are facing their beaches. Which I thought
do you have ecological questions in that survey you've been sending around?
Would have to. It's been a while. I provided to the board some initial comments. I would have to double check. I can ask. I can review it, and then if there's not an ecological question, I can easily add it to the ones going forward, and then try to do a look back with the others.
And also, just a little background. I'm a former lifeguard, but Dan Tarble is a former seaweed guy. That was his job at least one summer. And I don't remember the exact details, but every morning, every weekend, Dan was down there raking the beach. And that was, a paid position for a teenager. So that was, I'm sure the issue is kind of close to his heart. And I'm not sure that we've really done that in recent years. I haven't seen it separated from the lifeguards like that. But, that's another thing we could potentially consider. Let's see. I feel like I may have missed something. Social chair.
If there's somebody who had a question in the chat that hasn't been addressed, if they can raise their hand or ask Charlie to repeat it or just retype it, that'd be great.
There are some comments about whether or not we need the stipend, whether we should pay it to the committee chair people. One thing I will say about that is our committee chair people all work really hard. The bylaws committee works really hard. They're not paid. So, I don't know that we want to start getting into kind of assessing how much work different committees put into things. But, I think that would be the argument against paying committee chair people. I think the way around that in the past was not having entertainment chairs and paying social chairs, which are not in the bylaws. But, I think these are all interesting questions. The chat is recorded, so we'll try to incorporate that stuff into the FAQ and hopefully get some information out and continue the conversation around that tomorrow if needed. Does anyone else have anything that they want to contribute? Oh, I see a message just came in. Legal fees. Okay, well, here we go. I see a comment from Karen who would like to jump back in. So I'm going to unmute you. I'll put you on video if you're still available. And Karen, you're on.
I'm just kind of concerned about the amount of legal fees that we have in the budget. At our August meeting last year, I thought it was pretty clear that the members did not want to continue spending all this money on legal fees. So I'm just somewhat surprised that there's $9,000 of legal fees for this year's budget.
In terms of the legal fees, I mean, the bylaw committee has, submitted a budget for the next stage of the bylaws. We're getting to the point where once the membership is probably the last item that needs to be fixed by the members prior to the attorney overlaying the balance of our existing bylaws with the provisions of the Connecticut general statutes that have to be in there. Again, the bylaw committee presented a budget of expenses to date. I mean, or planned expenses for this year. There is a budget in there for corporate governance issues because items do come up that we have to have. And then in addition, there is the layover of the agreement that we've been asked to look into in terms of negotiation this year. So I mean, if you look at the narrative, it's pretty detailed in terms of what we need. I mean, our bylaws do have to be changed, and there's an expense to it.
David, could you just elaborate a little bit on what you mean by corporate governance issues?
Yeah, so if there's an issue that comes up in terms of how the board has to act, because this is a lot of this stuff is new to this association, where it's not new to other associations because of the revamp of the Connecticut General Statutes back in 2010. Most boards back in 2010 were, in terms of 501c organizations, were very proactive in getting their bylaws redone. For some reason, we just weren't, and so that's that. But so if there's a corporate governance issue, on how the board has to act, it all depends. We need advice from an attorney, and the attorney has to give us that advice. One of the things that the attorney did state this year was the board needs to be very careful not to do something that could jeopardize our tax exempt status. So we do have corporate governance issues that do come up, and they have to be, we seek the legal advice of an attorney to get those items answered, because none of us on the board are attorneys.
Sorry, there might be some background noise here. So I'm distracted now. There's some comments in the chat, agree, disagree. I think anyone who has strong feelings about a certain thing, it would be really good to put your thoughts in writing and send it into the board. Like I said, we're going to try to generate an FAQ document. David's committed to doing that. As far as the comment, we are not tax exempt. I believe that we do not pay federal taxes. We are
Correct.
Federally tax exempt.
Correct. I stand corrected. We're exempt from the payment of federal taxes.
And then let's see, their bylaws were. I'm going to read this comment. The bylaws were, this is from Dan Tarble, the bylaws were in fact passed years ago legally and then canceled due to an unintended loophole, unfair comment to those on the board and committee at the time they were passed. I don't really know all the historical things that went on, but I believe what Dan's referring to is years ago there may have been a bylaws revision that was later appealed or repealed because of another section of the bylaws. David, do you remember that?
I do remember a portion of that, but just to answer the question, in 2010, the Connecticut General Legislature met to say that every 501c organization in Connecticut has to have almost a standard set of bylaws to address a lot of things. How to elect members, pass a budget. Our organization right now, we elect officers. That, according to the attorney, is not how our organization should be structured. Our members are to elect directors. The directors then meet to appoint officers, and then those officers meet to appoint committee chairs. That's the appropriate corporate structure. It's followed in law and precedent. So, and she was emphatic about that, I think, at the first bylaw committee meeting that was held, I think, in February. So when I was referring to bylaw changes back in 2010, I was referring to those particular bylaw changes that should be in every set of bylaws, and they're consistent. Membership is is something that is not dictated, so to speak, according, the membership of an organization is not dictated by Connecticut law, but how you vote a budget, how you who calls a meeting, all those items are, and that's what I was basically referring to.
Great, thank you, David. Also, that's a little bit outside of the scope of a budget discussion, but all very good questions that I think are related to what we're talking about. We are running up on our hour time limit, so I don't know, David, if you want to continue, but there was one more question which we can either send to the FAQ or you might know the answer to it. From David Robinson, what is the liability insurance related to the use of the bridge?
I can specifically, the only thing that our liability insurance companies have answered a question was, does our it has to do with lifeguards. One of the things that came out of the thing was that a lot of the beach associations around our area, the majority of them do not have lifeguards. So when I was getting those informations, I talked to I had our insurance agent, just ask our carriers their position on that. And basically what the carriers came back and said that, and I may be paraphrasing this, but our liability doesn't change whether or not we have lifeguards and if we don't have lifeguards. That's why a lot of the beach associations have abandoned the hiring of lifeguards for the summer. But in terms of the bridge, our bridge, I will find out specifically the extent of the insurance. Our bridge, I don't think specifically is insured. And I don't think we can get our bridge insured because of its age. So, but I will ask that question of our insurance agent.
Okay,
is that the
great.
question?
And,
what's our liability, or can we get insurance on the bridge? Is there two questions there?
Well, the question was, what is our liability insurance? So I think maybe does our liability umbrella cover things that could happen on the bridge potentially? The issue of actually insuring the bridge structure, I think that ship has sailed, but we could always ask the question. I believe we did discuss that in a board meeting at one point, and the result from the insurance agent was that it's not worth it. You should just build a new bridge if you want to get it insured. But we can definitely get answers to both of those questions. One other comment in the chat from Jill Szymanski. If you're trying to interpret legal documents, you need the advice of an attorney. One verse in these types of documents, laws constantly change. I think, that's why we have attorneys. They know the law and they interpret it and translate it for organizations like ourselves. And then Christine LaJeunesse commented that lifeguards give a lot of peace of mind to members, both young and old. So, obviously the conversation of having lifeguards or not, they're definitely a part of our beach. Like I said, I used to be a lifeguard. Lots of our members have been lifeguards. Lots of our kids have been lifeguards. So, that's definitely, a conversation. And, there are lifeguards in the budget for this season. So that's not something that is being planned on taken away, but it is a major percentage of our budget, $25,000 that we pay for our staffing right now as currently proposed, I believe. So it's always something when we look at the budget, you look at the pieces of the pie, and I think that's the biggest individual piece of the pie. David,
and Charlie, I just want to make one additional comment. Is last year the state adopted a minimum wage law. It's staggered in terms of the payments. This year, it's $12 is the minimum wage. It goes up to $13 August 1st. So at a minimum, our parking attendant will be paid $13 effective August. Next year, it goes up, I think in July, it goes up to $14. And then in 2023, June 1st of 2023, it goes up to $15. So, I mean, that is going to be a huge part of our budget going forward that we have to deal with because of the minimum wage law that was passed in Connecticut. Because it's not just the $15 an hour. There's other ancillary costs that we pay, and it's I think it's around 10.3 to 11% on top of those hourly salaries that we have to budget for.
and salaries are part of our operating expenses, which directly translate to the assessment fee that's charged to the members every year.
Correct. Well, in closing,
Dave,
is there any
it's
additional
11.
questions?
Do you want to stay on, or would you like to continue tomorrow?
I'd like to continue tomorrow, and I welcome everybody to come back if there's any additional questions than what was discussed today. I think this is a great process. I'm glad that we're able to do it. It's something that I feel is very important to the association, that they actually have a say in how our budget is and their fees are spent. So again, thank you very much for everybody for attending. Again, feel free to come back if you know of any other member who couldn't make the meeting. Have them also join, to have a discussion with them, tell them, to feel free to join for tomorrow. So, and again, I thank everybody for their time on a Saturday.
Or put your thoughts in writing as well. And the meeting tomorrow is at 11 a.m. There's a link that was sent out to the listserv. If anyone doesn't have it, feel free to email me. I'll make sure you get it. I sent a reminder last night. I don't think everyone got it, which I'll look into. But yeah, thank you. We had 22 people on today, so it's great participation. And I really appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you, everyone.